Hi, it's Cenk Uygur. I'm host of the Young Turks, and I run the TYT network. Make sure you check me out on Bootleg podcast.
Hey, before we start the episode, we're going to remind everybody, man, we got one of the biggest radio shows in the country, syndicated in almost 100 cities, all over. Shout out to iHeartRadio. All right. Some of the latest cities that we've been able to add, man. Want to give a shout out to 93.9 The Beat in Honolulu. That's right. Hawaii. We over there going crazy. I also want to give a shout out Hot 98.3 in Tucson. Shout out to Tucson going crazy. Also want to give a shout out to Wild 94.1 in Tampa. Going crazy. We just got Richmond. We also just got the good folks in Bakersfield at Hot 104.7. So we're going crazy on the radio with my partner James Andre Jefferson Jr. for the Bootleg Kev Show. So make sure you tune in and you can listen anywhere on that iHeartRadio app. That's right. Let's get into the interview. Bootleg Kev podcast, man. We got a special guest in here. I'm a fan of this guy. He is I would say a pioneer in the YouTube space, in the news space. One of my favorite channels for the last, I don't know, since I can remember, man. The Young Turks. Cenk Uygur's here.
Oh, thank you
for coming, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. It's crazy because I feel like, because I am like a old school, like obviously I grew up a Democrat. I've always voted for Democrats my entire life. And the last like 4 to 5 years, I've felt like what has happened to my party? Like what is going on? And it's longer than that. I guess I've been paying more attention and been more like fully engaged into what's going on the last 4 or 5 years, so it becomes a little bit more disenfranchising. But I mean, yeah, what is going on with the quote unquote left? And with the party as a whole, man, where you got guys like you and I who are just like screaming and trying to.
Yeah. So it's been going on a long time. And this is actually chapter 4 of my book, Justice is Coming, What Happened in the Democratic Party. And so it actually started back in 78. And it was a gradual process until it became almost nearly completely corrupted, minus Bernie and his wing, right? Supreme Court legalized bribery. They said that corporations are human beings. Money is speech. So they're just talking to politicians when they give them millions of dollars.
Right.
And then mainstream media is heart of corruption. And so they would go and be like, oh, yeah, no. When, name a lobby, Big Pharma or oil or the bankers or AIPAC gives like hundreds of millions of dollars to politicians. No, that doesn't influence them at all. They're honorable gentlemen.
It's like it's crazy how they give everybody the benefit of the doubt that they're no. Of course it doesn't. It's like if you gave that much money to anybody, you'd have an influence on them, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
It's like.
So there's an old line about journalism that you're supposed to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Right? Means you're supposed to take on power. You're supposed to challenge power, right? But our media doesn't do that anymore. So they do the reverse. They comfort the powerful, right? So that's why I've been doing this for 23 years now. We're the oldest show in internet history.
Dude, I remember when you and Alex Jones got into it.
Yeah, real quick on that. It's fun. There's so many.
Jimmy Dore was there?
Yeah. Fun fact on that one. So that's the night of Trump's acceptance speech at the RNC in 2016. And Trump's speech was number 2 on Facebook. Number 1 was the fight Alex Jones and I got into. Okay. So we beat Trump's acceptance speech on that night. Anyways, yeah. So I've been in every brawl there is. And that's part of why mainstream media doesn't like us. They're like, oh, that guy's not genteel.
Right.
The son of a bitch taking hundreds of millions of dollars in bribes. That guy's a gentleman. That guy is a wonderful elitist, right? But Cenk, with his 28 million subscribers and, like longest running show on the internet, populist dude, they hate me. Okay, like I don't know if you remember in the XFL back in the day.
He hate me.
Yeah. There you go.
I looked for that jersey on eBay recently. I couldn't find it.
Oh no! If you find it, you got to let me buy it.
Yeah, because that's such. I was like, yo, this would be a sick like throwback to pull out. Like,
yeah. For me, it's they hate me.
Yeah.
Right. So the Democratic leadership hates me. Republicans hate me. Mainstream media hates me. The only people who don't hate me are real people.
Yeah, you mentioned the media, and I saw a clip this morning that enraged me a little because I saw Jake Tapper speaking about how Hunter Biden was the quasi chief of staff for his dad. And the way Jake Tapper talked about Hunter Biden in this clip was so disrespectful, and it was so obvious, all the things to anybody who like knew Hunter Biden and didn't realize that we were being fed this conspiracy theory about his laptop and all that. But he was saying all this. He was like, essentially he was saying this guy's a piece of shit. He started dating his brother's widow and got her hooked on crack. This is Jake Tapper saying all this on video this morning. And I'm in my head, I'm like, where was all of this in 2020? Where was all this throughout Biden's entire 4 years? It's just the most disingenuous, and now it's an opportunistic. Oh, he's got a book, and it's all horse shit.
Yeah, like Jake Tapper's book on how did the media miss Joe Biden's decline is like OJ writing a book about finding the real killer.
It's insane.
Like, come on, who are we kidding?
The rest of the American public didn't miss it, and anybody who was honest, who had eyes, who had ears, or who listened to what you guys are saying, or a lot of the guys on the right were saying, it's like, obviously he had mental decline. This is crazy. Like,
so Kev, I said it back in 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. So during the primaries, I said, look, this brother's way slower than he used to be. And he's got a couple of things here that are not just stutters or gaffes.
Right.
They're like problematic, right? So what was the reaction in 2020? Oh, you're just doing it for Bernie. You're a dirty political figure. Blah 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 blah. And who was the people? Who were the guys who were throwing shade at me like that? Jake Tapper was in the lead, right? So I'll tell you more about Jake Tapper in a second. Then we get to 2023. I start a petition on Young Turks. I'm like, look, I don't want to lose to Trump. This guy doesn't have a brain left, right?
Yeah.
If we run him, a candidate requires a brain, a functioning brain. We're going to lose. They're like, and this is what drives me crazy about establishment Democrats and mainstream media. They're like, oh, so you're for Trump? I'm like, I don't want to lose to Trump. And this guy's obviously going to lose. They're like, oh, so you love Trump? I'm like, ah.
It's as if people's, the idea of two things being true at the same time, it's just not possible to a lot of these people.
It's not. They did such binary thinking.
Because I was not I voted for Biden the first go around. I did not vote. I sat out the last election. I voted for the Green Party because I just, in good conscience, couldn't vote for anybody who was a part of the funding of a genocide. With that being said, shout out to Jill Stein.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, it is interesting because when you say certain things and you're critical of, if in 2023 you were saying that, it's like, well, you must be MAGA. And it's like, or neither of these parties really represents the true working class. I don't know if you were able to sit with the Bernie Flagrant interview at all. With that,
yeah, I did. Oh, I loved it.
It was really good.
Yeah.
And it was. I feel like they had conversations that it's funny because on Blue Sky or Threads, they're tearing it down. They're like, Bernie's a sellout and all. And I'm just like, and then on Twitter, it's kind of the opposite. They're using it as like an opportunistic way to be like, see, the Democrats are, and they are. The Democrats are fucked. But it's just been funny to watch like people who are otherwise rational, sound-thinking human beings not be able to have rational conversations about this one thing. And it's like, hey, two things can be true at the same time. This is how being an adult works.
100%. I've been saying that on the show nonstop. My co-host yesterday on one of our podcasts, Old School, said, God, you keep saying two things can be true at the same time all the time, because I got to get it through to people's heads. So let me connect a bunch of things we were talking about, right? So I say to folks, look, we're going to lose with this guy. His brain's leaking out of his ear. Right. Okay. Let's pick the strongest candidate against Trump.
Right.
And they're like, so you're pro-Trump. I'm like, okay, all right. You're like,
do you not hear what I?
Yeah, no, they don't. I'm like, I say to my left-wing critics, I think they got a problem with the English language. I don't know, maybe it's the schooling. Like, I just did it today. I'm like, Democrats, I had a tweet about Democrats, the Biden supporters screwed over Democratic voters more than they screwed over anyone else. Because if you're a MAGA guy, you're like, oh, I love that you ran this guy for 90% of the campaign and then didn't have a competitive primary and then handed it off to Miss Word Salad. Like, they're thrilled.
They loved it. They were like, yeah. They don't want to have a primary.
Yeah, I went to this MAGA thing, and first guy that runs into me, he's like, oh, man, thank God they didn't listen to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Or thank God, I mean, I know you ran like as a performative way to try to force the Democratic Party, but thank God you weren't able to truly run. Because I feel like, obviously because you weren't born here, but...
Yeah. So, look, that's a long story. You can run, but I was a protest candidate. You're totally right. Because, of course, the media is not going to take you seriously. They're going to be like, oh, I do declare. Right. He's not even an elitist.
Right.
Sometimes I tell them, I went to 2 Ivy League schools, and their reaction every time is like, what the fuck, really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. But you talk like a normal person.
Right.
Yeah, goddamn right I do.
Right.
And you guys sound like pricks, which brings us back to Jake Tapper. Okay, so that guy is the first one to look down his nose at you. His nose is like a double black diamond.
Right.
I mean, he just looking down it the whole time like, oh, and he did it with Biden's age. He was like, oh, how can you say he's in cognitive decline? You have no evidence of that. It's a conspiracy theory. Oh. Meanwhile, Joe goes, next segment, Joe's on air going, Medicare. Gone. Corn pop, right? And you're like, what the fuck? He just said his uncle was eaten by cannibals. He literally said that, right? So now Tapper turns around and says, oh, I knew it all along, and I'm the guy who discovered it. No, you're not. No, you're not.
He's full of shit.
He's 100% full of shit. And you know what, Kev? This is interesting. They hate the populist left. The mainstream media does, and the establishment does. Way more than they hate the populist right or MAGA, okay?
For sure.
Because, like, theoretically, they got it out against MAGA, and they do in some ways, for sure, right? But they at least listen to MAGA. Like, I got to go on a right-wing show to get heard on mainstream media. Yeah. Because left-wing shows are
they won't even invite you on. Yeah.
No.
If you have an audience, it's not like they have a lot of nobodies on CNN, respectfully. that release books that don't fucking sell.
But so think about it. Why is... we're literally the largest network on the left, right? 28 million subscribers, hundreds of millions of views a month, right? And I'm banned on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News.
That's wild.
So why? Why am I the most dangerous man in America? Like, what did I do to become this dangerous? Right, so they'll have any MAGA guy on, right? There'll be a guy frothing at the mouth, and he's like, oh, Michelle Obama's a man. And
they'll have the pillow guy on. They've had the pillow guy on.
Right.
They'll the pillow guy's done Jimmy Kimmel. What are we talking about?
But when it comes to someone who actually wants to change the system, they're like, oh, no. They're like, antenna goes up. They're like, intruder. We have someone who actually means it, right? So which brings us back to what happened in the Democratic Party. What happened was they got taken over by corporate donors.
Right.
So now, like, here, I'll give you an example of policy. Paid family leave. Polls at 84%. Right? 84% of the country wants it. What does mainstream media say? Joe Manchin's against it. Joe Manchin's a moderate. Bernie Sanders is for it.
He's
a
an extremist or a radical, yeah.
Right. So how could 84% of the country be radical and 16% be moderate, right? The only way you can keep that kind of mythology up, that kind of bullshit up, is if you don't ever let any of us on air. Right? And so then they kiss the ass of all of the moderate Democrats who, by the way, are radicals, corporatists, and suck at politics, right? And what did they say against Bernie in 2016 and 2020? Oh, he can't win. He can't win. But we know Hillary Clinton's definitely going to win. Joe Biden's the best Democrat to run against Trump in 2024. My ass. It's nothing but wall-to-wall lies.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we think of... like you said, I guess it's gatekeeping at the highest level, where if you get, and we were just talking about this earlier today about how it's a class thing. This is all class, right? They would like to throw the LGBTQ football down the field to get everybody to look at it while they're fucking you over on your health care, on your medicine, on anything of being able to buy a house,
100%.
All of these things while we're arguing about whether or not a trans lady can swim. And again, I don't agree with that, but it doesn't affect enough of the population for it to be a major talking point on all these networks. Meanwhile, BlackRock's making it damn near impossible because they're buying up so much residential real estate and, fucking the middle class out of whatever the American dream is, whatever's left of it, to be honest.
So let me tell you why they do the culture war stuff, okay? Because it's a perfect way to divide us. So, and what happens is the radical right starts it. They're like, okay, we hate gay people. And like in 2004, that works, right?
Right.
But by the time they get to 2016, that doesn't work anymore, right? So they're like, okay, fuck it, we hate trans people, right?
It's the new thing.
Yeah. So now that doesn't work too well either. Then they try trans bathrooms. That doesn't work. Trans military doesn't work. Then they finally find something on the outer edges of trans women in professional sports, right? And so then the radical left jumps in and they're like, yeah, that's the most important issue.
It's crazy.
And if you don't agree with us on that, you're a Nazi, right?
Or a transphobe. Or you're like hateful. And I'm like, no. And by the way, you morons, you're going to walk trans rights backwards. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And what happened? Now we lost military and we're on the verge of losing the bathrooms, right? Yeah. And these poor folks have to get, ridiculed instead of going into a bathroom. Don't do that to people, right?
The fact it was so harped on and dived into on the left, and it became this thing. I mean, obviously living here in California, it's counterproductive to like trans people who are just trying to live like a normal life.
Yes.
Because they kind of get characterized and turned into like these cartoons of like what's wrong with America, and it's like, yo, what if I just want to pick up a coffee and take a piss? You know what I mean? Like, and get a normal gig. Like, it is crazy.
So, but there's one line. So first of all, on regular trans folks, you're 100% right. We did a get together for TYT in Chicago last week.
Yeah.
A trans woman drove with her partner from northern Michigan to Chicago just to say, I got your back. Look, I've been watching Young Turks for 15 years. You've been fighting for us the entire time. And these folks don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
And come on, guys. We started Just Democrats. We started AOC, et cetera. It's not like we don't know politics, right? So when I tell you that you're going to walk it backwards and it's going to cost you rights, can you please trust that for a second instead of being so arrogant? But it isn't just about arrogance. So look, the radicals on both sides do it partly for the algorithm, right? The algorithm loves extreme.
It's good for business.
Oh, it's great for business.
It's good for politics. It's good. Yeah.
And it allows them to say, on both sides, right? I'm the pure one. You should watch me. You should listen to me. You should subscribe to me. Everyone who doesn't agree with me is impure and hence not as good as me, right? So it serves their purposes. It's enormously egotistical, but it costs us our rights. But the most important part, Kev, is the establishment loves the culture wars. Mm-hmm. So the minute the radical right and the radical left get into it, they're like, yes!
It's good for ratings, man.
Yeah, it's good for ratings. It's good for distraction.
That's why they loved Trump.
Yeah. Oh, of course. They loved the circus.
Oh, my God. And I don't think that they were as... I mean, I feel like mainstream media was as complicit as getting him elected because he really didn't have to spend any money on advertising. You just turn on TV all day and they're just talking about Trump.
100%. And so, meanwhile, BlackRock's robbing us blind. Meanwhile, every kind of dirty corporate trick is being played.
Everything.
Meanwhile, nobody's even talking about what was the one major bill that Trump passed in his first term. It was giant tax cuts for the rich.
Right.
And he took corporate taxes from 35 to 21, which then transfers all that tax burden onto us.
To the lower class.
Right? So the middle class now has to pay for all those corporate taxes that we don't have anymore. Meanwhile, nobody even talked about it. All they talked about was, oh, Trump said something mean. And then the left is angry about what he's...
What did Trump tweet today?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's interesting. I want to talk to you about Trump because... This last election was interesting because I feel like there was actually a real primary process on the right this time. Well, I mean, he didn't participate in any of the debates or anything, as opposed to what the Democrats did, where they just kind of lollygagged us into word salad lady. But Trump, it seemed to me as so many people became so disenfranchised with the Biden administration. Some of the gaslighting, Gaza. I mean, we can go on and on and on. There was a lot to not be happy about, where there was this weird Venn diagram of people who might have voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016, 2020, but then ended up talking themselves into Trump being the better choice. Not to say they're right or wrong, that's their vote. It is what it is. What would you attribute that to? I know that you always say that there is a populist side of the MAGA folks that kind of align on a lot of stuff that the populist side of the left should align on. What would you kind of attribute the Venn diagram matching up a little bit there between those two voting sides that you would perceive to be so different?
Yeah. So I remember in 2016, I'd be doing videos about Bernie on the street or whatever, right?
Dude, I was living in Tampa, Florida, volunteering for Bernie's campaign out there, you know?
Yeah. And whenever people recognized me in the street, whether I was shooting a video or they just recognized me from the show, and they were Republicans, almost every time they would say, you know, I'd have voted for Bernie. You know, I'd vote for Bernie, right? Why? Why is the Trump guy voting for Bernie when they're on the opposite ends of the political spectrum, right? It's because they're both anti-establishment.
Right.
The only reason Trump won, his number one calling card, they're lying to you. They say, oh, no, the number one reason he won is because the country's racist and sexist and fascist and all that stuff, right? We'll get back to that in a second.
Yes.
But no, that's not the number one reason. The number one reason is he's anti-establishment. Now, is he really? Not really. He's a fake populist, right?
Right.
But at least he's savvy enough to know to fake it, right? So that's why the Bernie people are anti-establishment, the Trump people are anti-establishment. And that's why, so for example, they're anti-war, right? So MAGA's anti-war, we're anti-war.
Right.
Now, when I tell the left, you know, when I say radical left, it's actually not necessarily always the far left. The moderates have gotten radicalized. Those are like the Biden zombies who are like, well, Biden is the greatest candidate. There is no other Democrat that could beat Trump, right? And meanwhile, like both sides are leaking out. Like he's pulling a Rudy Giuliani. He's got almost no brain left. They're like, no, Biden is the greatest. You cannot criticize Biden, right? So those guys have become now the most radical, right? And so when you're saying, hey, guys, the right wing MAGA, they're not lying. They're all saying they're anti-war. Like some of them might be lying, and some of them, and Trump might be lying. And if Trump does start a war, some of them might back him. But a huge percentage of them will not back him, and they actually don't want war. Marjorie Taylor Greene comes on the Young Turks.
I saw that. Great conversation. I mean, whether or not, obviously she's a kook, but there's middle ground with anybody.
Exactly.
So why not have those discussions?
Right. So we bring her on, and she says, if Trump goes to war with Iran, I'm out. I'm out on Trump.
What a crazy thing for Marjorie Greene Taylor to say on camera, right?
Isn't that amazing? She said, no money to Israel. Awesome, right?
Yeah.
And you're right. All of our other opinions, we don't have to agree with. We can fight her tooth and nail on the other stuff, right? But take yes for an answer, especially when the MAGA base is screaming to Trump, who's in power, don't go to war, okay? So now when you tell the radical left, which are actually mostly moderates these days, former moderates, they're like, no, they are all in a cult. We are not in a cult. They are in a cult. They will never disagree with Trump. And I'm like, look, Tucker Carlson today saying Trump is wrong, right? Wrong to not release the Epstein files, wrong to back Israel.
A lot of the free speech stuff, I've seen a lot of the pundits on the right say, we don't back. This is against America. Like, you know.
Yeah, Joe Rogan is on there now. Rogan's more in the middle and more independent. He leans right. He obviously backed Trump this summer, but he backed Bernie.
He backed Bernie.
Why did Rogan go from Bernie to Trump? Because he's anti-establishment. Because he's an independent populist, right? And they keep pushing Rogans of the world to the right.
And also the establishment. I mean, they did Rogan dirty with the COVID shit. Like they really threw all the whole sink and the whole fucking caboose at trying to get him the fuck out of here.
So here's my take on that, Kev. So number one, do I agree with Rogan on ivermectin? No.
Right.
Okay. Number two, so the fuck what?
So the fuck what?
Okay, number three, oh, well, that's disinformation and it could hurt people. Well, then, brother, you put out the correct information. And that's how it works. Well, if you try to cancel him or you try to shut down his voice or the other voices, it's only going to make it worse.
Right.
It's not like the disinformation or misinformation isn't going to get out. It's going to get out more, not less.
Hey, shout out to my bookie, man. Look, the NBA finals are coming up. The playoffs are in full force right now. So many ways you could bet. If you want to get in on the action, go to mybookie.ag right now. Use that promo code Bootleg when you sign up for that first deposit bonus. That's important because you're supporting the Bootleg Head podcast and you're going to get that bonus to your account when you are a new member and you sign up. Go to mybookie.ag. So many different ways you could bet. So many different ways you can get in on the action. You could do player props if you think, I don't know, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is going to have over 31.5 points in the game. Hammer that. You think Luka's going to ball out. You can hammer that. And of course, you can still bet on your futures for the NBA Finals. And of course, it's baseball season. All right, NHL hockey still going on. So there's a lot happening. You could get in on that action, plus the full service casino, blackjack, roulette, all that. Sign up mybookie.ag. Use that promo code Bootleg for that first deposit bonus up to $1,000. That's right. Also want to give a shout out to our family at Blue Chew. That's right, baby. You can get a month's supply for free of Blue Chew. Go to bluechew.com right now. You just pay $5 in shipping, and Blue Chew is, man, it's a lifesaver. Let me tell you, all right? Fellas, if you need your situation to situate a little bit more, let me tell you, Blue Chew will make it happen. Same active ingredient as Viagra and Cialis. It's going to have you with that extra pep in your step. You're going to be very hard, you know? Yeah. Erectile dysfunction's a thing. Whiskey dick is a thing. Blue Chew handles it. This is the best part about Blue Chew. You get it delivered right to your door discreetly. Discreet packaging. It's chewable. Save active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, like I said. And you don't have to go to a doctor's office. You handle everything online, bluechew.com. Try it right now for free for a month. Yes, bluechew.com. Head over there. You just pay $5 in shipping. You'll thank me later. Your wife will thank me. Your girlfriend will thank me. Hell, sometimes you just pop a Blue Chew and rub one out just for fun, Anyway, let's get back to the interview. Yeah, I think with COVID, just to put a dot on the I there, it's almost like you asked an entire population to blindly trust the most corrupt industry there might be, the pharmaceutical industry, and just take their word for it. And, I think when you start mandating, that's the thing, is the mandating. When people start losing their jobs, that's when people are like, well, wait a minute. Hold on, this is my body. I think that's when things get a little, obviously, I think, intent was, I don't think the intent was ever like, for a lot of these people was bad. I don't think people like on CNN thought that they were, I think they had good intent. No,
that on COVID, it's a complicated issue.
It is. It's super complicated. So I don't want to get too much into it, but wild times we live through. But yeah, it's interesting because you're seeing the cracks in. I wouldn't say the cracks, but you're seeing the evolution in a lot of the pundits on the right, whether it's Candace Owens, or like you said, Tucker Carlson. A lot of these guys who we think we should hate as liberals, but then you'll see them say stuff and you'll be like, about maybe it's Israel, maybe it's some of the free speech stuff or the war stuff. And you're like, I kind of agree with them on a few of these things pretty strongly.
Yeah. So there's, again, a million things I disagree with Candace about. And when she gets into like a Jewish cabal in America, I hate that stuff.
Right. Because it takes away from like what's actually happening.
Yeah. It's not true.
Right.
It's not right. And it takes away the focus from Israel, which is a foreign government.
Which is a government,
right.
An entity that is a foreign government that is obviously, again, it has nothing to do with Jewish people as a whole. It's a government. And that's the other thing is it's like, but that takes us back to what we're talking about, trans rights. The way that the Trump administration is carrying the water for a foreign government and removing free speech in a way that is unprecedented, it hurts the cause of Jewish people, and it increases some of these stereotypes and tropes, and it increases anti-Semitism.
100%. So let me connect all those. So on the other hand, Candace yesterday or 2 days ago does this speech about how, you know what? We were lied to about Muslims. Like all my life in American media, I got this propaganda that Muslims are dirty, savages, and violent and stuff. Meanwhile, we've been attacking them. Israel's been attacking them. We've been like...
They're the most punished population of my lifetime.
Yeah, 100%. It's not even close.
It's not even close.
Right. And for even Candace Owens to wake up, who said terrible things about Muslims before, for her to wake up and go, holy shit, we were lied to. Yeah, they're just normal human beings. What the fuck were we doing this to them for, right?
Right.
So that's now the political spectrum's getting jumbled.
It's so jumbled, it's crazy.
Yeah.
The right is so divided, it's wild. Because I feel like Ben Shapiro's cooked. I don't think anybody gives, I think he's done.
So that gets to like such an interesting, moment in history right now, right? Because you're right. The right wing is splintering like crazy. Like Tucker's in a war with Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro, et cetera. Dave Smith's on Tucker's side.
Love Dave Smith.
Everybody loves Dave Smith.
He's the best.
Okay. So again, I got big disagreements with Dave on Social Security and other issues, but he's honest and he's smart. And he's principled, right? So we got a major civil war going on the right wing. And I'll come back to Israel because it's such an important topic. But in the middle of that civil war, we got the radical left going, nope, they're all a cult. They all think the same thing, and they all back each other. I'm like,
are you not
we're back to Joe Biden's young and dynamic.
Right.
You don't have eyes, you don't have ears.
Right.
You don't see them fighting right now where Tucker's saying Mark Levin's a piece of crap, and Mark Levin's saying that Tucker's a piece of crap, etc. Ben Shapiro's totally losing his audience, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. Because now what's happened on the right is they're like, wait a minute, they're waking up, like kind of Candace Owens, etc. are waking up and going, wait, I thought it was supposed to be America first. Why is it Israel first?
Yeah, why is it? I think Mark Levin, he tweeted, neocon is just another word for Jew, and I'm like, what? What?
John Bolton, Dick Cheney, George Bush, none of them were Jewish.
It's insane. Right? Hillary Clinton, not a Jew.
No.
Like, what are we talking about?
So
Some of the biggest war hawks of all time. Put them in the rafters. Non-Jewish.
Yeah, you know what's happening is that they're a one-trick pony. The Israel First crowd is a one-trick pony. Anytime anybody opposes Israel, they're like, anti-Semite, anti-Semite.
I know.
So now that it's played out. They cried wolf too many times.
Right.
Like in the middle of slaughtering over 50,000 people and starving 2 million people to death, they're like, oh, if you point that out, you're an anti-Semite. Now, right wing, left wing, middle wing are all like deuces, motherfuckers. Deuces.
It's bad.
Like, no, I'm not interested in your bullshit charges of anti-Semitism. If you got real anti-Semitism, we're against it. We're 100% against it. This isn't about religion. This is about a foreign government, right? But if you're telling me that AIPAC hasn't bought Congress when they were the number one spenders of money, when they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on our crooks, the corrupt politicians, and you tell me, no, ignore your eyes and ears. No, this country isn't Israel first. Bullshit. Our politicians are such crooks. And it's not about Israel. And it's money in politics. Like you were saying, big pharma, the dirtiest industry there is. We're not allowed to negotiate drug prices. What the fuck kind of capitalism is that?
Right.
They say you're capitalist and you say, no. You're
on everything but this.
No, you're not allowed to have competition. You're not allowed to have competition.
That's what capitalism is.
That's what capitalism is, right?
Right.
So, and why does Big Pharma get away with that? Because they bribed all the politicians, and the politicians work for them like goddamn dogs.
Yeah,
right?
It's pretty crazy. It's like interesting too because then they take like a word like socialists. I mean, this was like the big thing. They made that like the big S word in terms of Bernie. And it's like most people will write Bernie Sanders off, at least that I would talk to in the last 10 years, just based off of, no, but he's a socialist. Like, have you ever heard this guy fucking talk? Like it's almost like, you know, we're talking about the big beautiful bill, and you know, some of the increases in spending on certain things where you're like, okay, in theory, the idea of DOGE initially, I was like, yeah, this sounds like a good idea that everyone should be excited for. Somebody going in and exposing wasteful spending, in theory, that should be a bipartisan thing that everyone should have got behind. I think it was a ruse, and I think Elon Musk and the way he carried himself was like a fucking dick, so it was hard for anybody to support him. But all these cuts that they supposedly made, which was an inflated bullshit number anyway, but ends up getting added onto the defense budget anyway. Yeah. So it's like you increase the defense budget by $200 billion or something, you get it over $1 trillion now. But then you tout that DOGE saved, I think, $140 billion. But it doesn't matter because if that money's just getting put over here, it's like, where you know, where they're talking about the $5,000 DOGE checks? I was like, that's something people will be excited about. That shit's never going to happen.
No way.
It was all bullshit.
No way, because that goes to the average guy. There's no way they're going to do
Bullshit.
that.
Yeah.
So look, here's what happened with Doge. So they come in and they say, we're going to do cuts and stuff. I knew it was bullshit from day one, to be honest. And so why? Because I've seen the Republican trick 1,000 times, right? Oh, we're going to do big cuts, so don't worry about it when we do a multi-trillion-dollar tax cut for the rich. It'll get paid for.
Throwing the ball over here, and you're like, oh, but they're cutting spending. But meanwhile, the boring bill, Doge is sexy. You got a face for it. You got a mascot. People are paying attention to it while they're trying to fuck you on the back end. It's insane.
So then I put out a tweet. I didn't even think anything was going to happen of it, but I tagged Elon and I said,
I
hey,
remember he replied to you.
I said, look, if you want to cut the Pentagon, I'll cut it in half. You want to cut $2 trillion, I'll cut 20% of it for you overnight. 400 billion because that's the number they can't account for. They can't.
Right. That's the real money. Where did it go?
No idea.
Right.
No, if you don't know where $400 billion went, you're not getting the $400 billion.
Correct.
That's our money. That's our money. If you tell me, hey, thanks a lot for all your fucking money, where'd it go? I don't know, my pocket. Fuck off. No, they give me the money back, right? So then Elon goes, oh yeah, that's interesting. Tell me how. And Don Jr. jumps in. He's like, oh, good idea, right? And so, again, my friends on the radical left are like, you're working with Elon Musk and you trust him 100% and I'm like, guys, I didn't say he's going to do it. I said, if you want to do it, I will do it for you, right? But I know he's not going to do it. So they get on the record and they say, oh, yeah, we're going to do it. And what do? They added $100 billion to the Pentagon. They didn't take $1 away, right? And guess what they're spending? They might spend a couple $100 billion on now. They might spend it on
the Golden Dome?
Golden Dome.
Yeah.
And the person who might get that, the company that might get that contract is SpaceX, owned by Elon Musk. Oh. So what happened to the cuts? There ain't no cuts. So then you go to the $140 billion of supposed cuts. Now, a lot of it isn't real. A lot of it is like cutting cancer research, malaria, et cetera. But give the whole thing to them. Okay? Say, all right, you know what?
Even if you took them at the word. And
take them at their word and say, all right, man, good job, guys. Cut $140 billion. Okay? And let's say they were all good cuts. Okay? The tax cut is $5.5 trillion. If you take away the $140 billion, you still have $5.4 trillion.
It's crazy.
So what difference does it make?
Right.
And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. The tariffs are going to pay for the tax cuts. The gold card is going to pay for the tax cuts. All of that is tricks so that when you get to the $5 trillion in tax cuts, you go, oh, no, it's okay. It's paid for already. Just give everything to the rich. Right. Give everything to the rich. Give it another giant corporate tax cut from 21 to 15% while you're pretending to be populist.
And you're supposed to be trying to fix our debt. And I think this bill increased spending, but I forget the number, but I think it's a lot. But I think at the end of the day, it's like we are kind of dealt with two shit deck of cards in terms of the Republican Party and the establishment Democrat Party, because I think the Democratic Party is the most corrupt organization in politics, because they've been proven to actually conspire against one of their people, Bernie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a proven fact. I think they got found guilty, but the judge was like, it's a private club or some shit like that.
They use that same argument against me. Yeah.
Anyway, it's like, where do we go from here? I know you have your pack that you're putting together, but it feels like we're underwater with no chance of not drowning either way you look, because either way you look, there's oligarchs, there's billionaires, there's nothing left for the middle class. There's no real option left for normal people. For if I have to go and get surgery, and I got to choose not to get the surgery, because if I get the surgery, I'm going to be fucked and I got to go out of work. And there's just there's no options left. It feels like anybody on the left that has a brain or that has a spine, I'll say, they're pretty much the guys on the outside of the fence, like trying to play, and they're looking over the fence like, hey, what about us? And then on the right, you got a guy like Thomas Massie, who's, I disagree with a lot of stuff with Thomas Massie, but has a spine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He's standing up to Trump today.
Yeah. They're going to primary him and try to get him the fuck out of there.
No, they will lose.
I think they will lose, because I think his constituents appreciate what he's doing. But how do we get through this and try to have a real, I wouldn't say the word revolution, but have a real flip on flipping the system on its head? Because it's set up for everyone to just. I mean, you know, there was that World Economic Forum quote from about a decade ago where they said, "You'll own nothing and be happy," and it feels like we're all just going to be, you know, cattle in the ranch soon enough, and you know, the American dream's gone, man. You know, especially here in California, we're fucked here.
Yeah. Good news. I have the answer. Okay, so here's one thing that American people have not tried. So what did we try? We tried establishment Republicans like George Bush and Dick Cheney, hated it, right? We tried establishment Democrats like Joe Biden, didn't like it, right? Hillary Clinton, etc. I think it's fair to say hated it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So then we tried the populist right. That's Trump. At least he's pretending to be populist, right? So, and soon the American people are going to realize he ain't populist. He's just a guy who gave record amount to the rich. He did it last time. He'll do it this time. Right. Okay. So the one thing they haven't tried is populist left. That's the Bernie camp, right? Bernie 2016, no culture wars, right? So just pure economic populism. Give things to the American people, not to the rich, not to corporations. So I started a Rebellion PAC along with a couple of co-founders, and we're pushing the populist plank. Okay, what's the populist plank? To your point, number one, don't allow private equity to buy residential homes, because these bankers are coming in and they're buying all the homes. Why? Because it's the biggest wealth creation asset in America. That's how we got the greatest middle class the world has ever seen, because our homes, our homes went up in value, right? Yeah. And that created huge wealth for us. The bankers, the private equity guys, they see that and they're like, why would we let our servants have that? No. We're going to get all that wealth creation. We're going to turn them into renters, and then they'll have to work for corporate America for the rest of their lives. They're going to be indentured servants. We can stop that. So if you stop that, you bring that wealth back to the middle class, and you stop housing prices from going through the roof, right? So that's proposal number one. Proposal number two is negotiate drug prices at Medicare. Bring back capitalism, right? Proposal number three.
Doesn't sound like a socialist idea. It sounds like a capitalistic idea.
Yeah, so Bernie calls it democratic socialism, which I think is a bad idea.
Bad branding name.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I call it?
Yeah.
Democratic capitalism. Because it's democracy checking capitalism. You need both. You need capitalism and you need democracy.
That's a much better name to roll with.
Yeah, and if democracy doesn't check capitalism, then it turns into corporatism. And corporatism is the opposite of capitalism. Giant corporations hate competition. Forget the socialists and the communists. The people who really want to kill capitalism are corporations.
For sure.
Because corporations don't want any competition.
Well, that's why all their labor's, in fucking China and India and Vietnam.
Exactly.
Like, they care.
Every once in a while, politicians will talk about like, well, we're expecting these American corporations to be patriotic. Like,
good. Because that's happened zero fucking times.
Exactly.
Go to fucking Detroit and tell me how that worked out.
Besides which, corporations aren't people. They're not humans. They don't feel patriotism.
Their job is to increase profits. Yeah. Period. Dot. That's it.
People are talking about, what if AI takes over, the machines take over? Too late. They already did. They're called corporations. Yeah. Corporations already took over. They already zombified the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment. They already turned them into zombies. So you take that away. Paid family leave. Give moms 12 weeks off after they have a baby. I go on Patrick Bet-David's show, right-wing show. They do a poll. 75% of his right-wing audience goes, yeah, fuck yeah, of course give moms 12 weeks off. We want them to have babies, right? Well, why wouldn't we give them? Every country on earth has paid family leave but America, even though we're the richest. Why? Because we live under corporate rule and corporations are crushing us. So and no wars, money out of politics, and higher wages. So these are all democratic policies.
Right.
They're all super popular. They poll at 65 to 95%. Right? So why wouldn't you run on your most popular policies?
It's almost like it's not about winning as much as it's about keeping things more the way they are. So they would rather have Donald Trump win because they know he's a rich fuck and they kind of know he's got some guys around him that won't let him get too crazy. Then turn the party over to what the actual American people want, because all these motherfuckers are owned by their donors. They're all full of shit. Like, no disrespect to Cory Booker. I appreciated him doing his, what was he, 28 hours or something he was doing his...
I think 25 or something.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, the theatrics of the
filibuster. It was theatrical. It was not... It doesn't matter. Like, all these guys are full of shit.
Of course, you know what Cory Booker did yesterday? He voted to confirm Jared Kushner's dad to an ambassador position, and Jared Kushner's dad isn't just Jared Kushner's dad. Who cares?
He's a guy he
got convicted.
Yeah, he got convicted, and then Trump gave him a what's it called?
A pardon.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a white collar criminal, right?
It's like quite literally.
Yeah.
Why would you vote to confirm him? What are we talking about?
Because he's from New Jersey and he has a lot of cash.
And so, maybe, no. And that's the thing is like, I don't know if the answer is AOC in the future. I don't know. It's definitely, it feels like, speaking of people with no spines, no true beliefs and power hungry, it feels like Gavin Newsom is really like, I think no matter what, he's throwing his hat in the ring.
Oh yeah, of course. So let me try to give you some hope. So I'll tell you about some of our candidates, and then I'll tell you the guy that me and Charlemagne are obsessed with.
Okay.
Right. So number one, our candidates. We got Ro Khanna, that's hardcore Bernie economic team, right? Then you got Richard Ojeda in North Carolina 9, and so Ojeda is a 24-year veteran. And this brother ran in West Virginia because he went. His parents lived in West Virginia at the time. So, anyways, he was in a district that favored Republicans by 54 points. He took the lead. Trump had to go down to West Virginia to make sure Ojeda didn't win. You know how he did it? He ran ads against Trump and Nancy Pelosi.
Wow.
Okay, so and they're like, "Well, you can't do that. You're in the Democratic Party." He's like, "Watch me, motherfuckers." Okay. I'm going to do ads calling out whoever I need to call out to deliver for the people in this district, right? And so then he did an ad against drug companies. At the time, back in like 2018 or whatever, that never happened. Right. Like, you don't do ads against donors. You crazy, against Democratic donors?
Right.
No way. And he did it. So he wound up closing 31 points. Like never seen before.
That's insane.
Now he's in a district that's about 10 points in favor of the Republicans. It's a red district. So the mainstream media is like, oh, he'll never win. All right, watch us. Let's see what happens, right? Then you got Randy Bryce came out yesterday. He's known as Iron Stash. He's an iron worker. He ran against Paul Ryan before. And I'm calling him lead pipe and blowtorch. Okay. These guys are serious populists. And what they're saying is if we get into Congress and we're going to propose these bills, and if the Republican Party or the Democratic Party says, no paid family leave, our donors are against it, we're not going to take it. We're not going to be like, oh, well, Nancy Pelosi said it. It's okay. No, you're going to vote on these bills, and I want to see how you vote. And if you vote against Democratic voters and the country, we're going to come for you, okay? So that's why it's called a rebellion. They join the rebellion. They don't take any corporate PAC money, and they come in hitting hard, okay?
So your rebellion PAC, it's going to be essentially grassroots, yeah. So I was one of the co-founders of Just Democrats, right? So that's AOC and the rest of them. And so later they wound up going into too much culture wars, and that's we split, etc. Right? But in the beginning, when we first started it, same idea of economic populism, etc. And I remember I talked to a bunch of reporters. I said, how many Justice Democrats do you think we're going to get elected? And they're like 0, but maybe you get lucky somewhere and you get 1, right? But there's no way it's more than 1. Got up to 11, right? Wow.
If I told them, last poll out says AOC is the face of the Democratic Party. If I told them back in 2018, not only will this bartender from New York pull off one of the greatest...
She'll be the face of the party.
Not only will she pull off one of the greatest political upsets in American history, but she'll go on to become the face of the party, they would be like, you guys are great. You outsider populist. There's no way that's going to happen. You have no chance. And okay, all right, let's see. So this time we're going to do it again. And when we win in those red districts, then we're going to go in 2028 and go... Now, they told you they knew how to win, and they gave you Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris, okay? Full of shit, and it is indisputable.
Each time they just, it's like when they were, like this last, I mean, man, when I tell you, I watched all 4 days of the DNC, hoping to be inspired, hoping to be convinced, and man, it was rough. With that being said, it's like the Democratic Party thinks so little of their voters that they think rolling out Beyonce, Megan Thee Stallion, whoever it is just enough to be like, fuck yeah.
The funniest
like Cardi B supporting Kamala, fuck everything else, I'm in. Like, It's almost like the Republicans, the celebrities they roll out are so washed and detrimental to their cause, it doesn't matter because it's not about the celebrities. Like, who gives a fuck who Hulk Hogan's fucking endorsing? It's a joke. But it's like,
So that, yeah, like Republicans are always like, oh, liberal Hollywood guys, we don't care. And then they're like, oh my God, Ted Nugent's on our side.
Oh my God.
Ted Nugent, the guy crapped his pants to get out of Vietnam. That's the guy you're proud of? Anyways, but the best line, the most hilarious line after the election was Joy Reid on MSNBC when she's like, Kamala Harris ran a perfect campaign. I'm like, wait. First of all, perfect, she lost. Secondly, she lost a popular vote, which seemed near impossible. Third of all, she lost every swing state.
All of them.
But in the warped reality of MSNBC, she said she ran a perfect campaign. She even got Queen Latifah to endorse her, and Queen Latifah normally doesn't endorse anyone. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Who gives a shit? Are you insane? Who cares that Queen Latifah endorsed her? And how did that help in Wisconsin? How did that help in Michigan?
Or how did it help parading Liz Cheney around or sending fucking Bill Clinton to Michigan to talk down to fucking Muslim voters whose families are probably being fucking slaughtered in the Middle East? But you're going to send this confirmed creep, to go talk down to these. It's like, no shit, you lost Michigan, you fucking idiots.
And think about that. So both Biden and Kamala Harris knew that the issue of Gaza was probably going to cost them Michigan. That's what the polling indicated, right? And so, and Michigan, they had to have. Without Michigan, they couldn't win, right? And they chose to go with AIPAC instead of the voters, even though they thought it might cost them the election. That's how
much they have their claws into the political system as an organization, as a foreign organization that should be designated so.
Yeah, so the fact that they're willing to lose,
that tells you all.
That tells you all.
They knew they were. It's almost like I said earlier, they would rather lose than change the system. Period. There's too much money on the line. It doesn't matter who dies. It doesn't matter. None of it matters as long as the system stays in place.
So now that's a perfect lead into why they fear the populist left and the Bernie movement more than Trump or anything else. Why? Because if they lose to Trump, everybody still keeps their job, right? So like in the Democratic Party, there's no big shakeup, right?
No, there's never a shakeup.
Right, there's no shakeup at all, right? And if Biden stayed in the race, even if he lost, his advisors are still in power and they're still attached to the candidate, and that gives them leverage, power, money, fame, status, right? So they think, from my perspective, who cares if Biden loses? As long as Biden's the candidate, I'm still in charge. Who cares if the Democrats lose? As long as Bernie doesn't win, as long as I still have my job, right?
The establishment wing is the face of it. I'm not going. Chuck Schumer's not going anywhere.
Yeah, But if Bernie wins, or this next time around, the next Bernie wins, you know what happens? All those guys in the Democratic Party lose their jobs.
Yep.
So they get replaced by populists. They get replaced by our guys. So that's why they hate us way more than they hate Republicans. That's why losing to Republicans is no big deal, but losing an internal fight in the Democratic Party is everything. That's why when Bernie ran, they're like, "Oh, Bernie bros, you're all sexist and racist," right?
He did a great job of articulating on that interview he just did. But hey, want to give a shout out to our family at Hardin, man, for sponsoring that episode of the Bootleg podcast. I just got back from Vegas and I picked up some goodies. All right, look, the number one dispensary in the world. When you're in Vegas, make sure you pull up. We got so much gas in here. Shout out to Hardin. If you're in Vegas, man, pull up to Hardin when you get in that taxi cab. As soon as you land, say, "Take me to Hardin." Follow them, Hardin_Las Vegas. Hardin Las Vegas, y'all. Shout out to them. Of course, we bang that Hardin, baby. You already know what it is, man. Want to give a shout out to our family at Odd Socks. Whatever you're into, Odd Socks has it covered, all right? The most comfortable socks in the world. By the way, those Happy Gilmore joints are insane. The Ren and Stempies, the Modelos. It's Modelo time. But the Monopoly. What are we doing with the Ninja Turtles? Also, they got your boxers on lock. They got your drawers. OddSocksOfficial.com. Use the promo code BOOTLEG right now. You'll save 20% off. Let's get back to the interview. Do you think there's a world in which, if we can identify that most of the fringe issues in this country aren't that important, okay? Whether it's any of the identity stuff, any of the low-hanging fruit, divisive bullshit, if you can say to yourself, okay, I see eye to eye with, let's call it the populist right, because there is that exists, right? That there are people on the right who are America first and want poor people to have health care and don't want to go to war. Is there a world in which, in our lifetime, because I think the whole entire issue with this entire thing is just is the fact that there's only two options, right? At least that's the perception. You're able to figure out a way to bring together two factions of the country to just agree on the big shit. And create something new.
So,
like if you could get Thomas Massey and Bernie Sanders and AOC in a room, or, you know, I don't know who else is on the right that's not fucking, you know, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Tucker Carlson, whatever it is. And everyone's just sitting in a room having a just open idea. Like, hey, look, we already know on this wall, we're never going to agree on all this shit. But all this shit really doesn't matter. What really matters is healthcare, keeping the American dream alive. All these things that all pull well with everybody. But I just feel like it's like the division, the labels is what will, at least in, you know, it was what has prevented anybody breaking out of that show. I mean, the Bernie thing is like, you know, man, dude, in 2020, I thought he had it, dude.
Yeah, he did.
And then South Carolina happens. Joe Biden wins South Carolina. The fucking call comes in. I don't know if it's Obama. Everybody drops out.
It was Obama, definitely.
Everybody drops out uniformly, and they back the old fuck. And Bernie's fucking cooked.
Yeah. So let me give you a pathway to your dream. Okay. So we run within the Democratic Party in 2028. So who's we? We don't know who the candidate's going to be yet, right? So there's plenty of good folks. Like I love Ro Khanna, and maybe it's him, but it could be other people. You know, there's plenty of great folks.
By then there might be people we even heard of yet. You know.
Yeah. So the guy that Charlamagne and I are obsessed with is Jon Stewart, right?
Oh my God, Jon Stewart would. Listen. The fact you say his name, me and my co-host James, all we do is talk politics every fucking day. This is like our life. We just talk politics. And if Jon Stewart ran, it would be, there's no question. This guy's got the fucking track record. He's fought for fucking FDNY. So
he got a bill passed when he wasn't even in Congress, right?
Yes, he did.
He's honest. He's smart. He's strong.
Can't call him anti-Semitic. He's Jewish.
Can't call him anti-Semitic. Same with Bernie. Yeah. By the way, that used to drive people crazy.
Yeah, it's like, you guys do realize Bernie Sanders is a Jewish guy. Right. Also, Dave Smith, a Jew. But
yeah. No, and I said in 2020, watch, they'll get so desperate they'll call Bernie anti-Semitic. And they did. Of course, it's a one-trick pony, right? So if John runs in the Democratic Party, or whoever it is, right? Whoever's got a head of momentum, right? And so head of steam, and so they get to a point where the establishment starts fighting them. And the establishment is going to do one of two things. They're either going to let that person keep running in the Democratic primary, and they're going to be fair, in which case that person is going to win and take over the Democratic Party, right? Or they're going to say, same old tricks, like in 2016, the way that they cheated was they took money from the state parties and funneled it to Hillary Clinton's campaign.
That's why I say the DNC is the most corrupt.
Yeah. Now, if the DNC pulls those tricks again, what's going to happen next is that person, let's just say that it's John. Then John's going to go, hey, you know what, guys? I'm a giant celebrity, and I was going to win this thing, and we have the polling, and it's clear that I was going to win it, and you guys are cheating. So you know what we're going to do? Now we're going to run as an independent and see how you like them apples. Okay? So now I don't want to go independent, and because that's very hard, and you have to raise a lot of money, etc. But you've got to put the Democratic Party in a position. You got to put the question to them. Are you going to be fair or aren't you? Is this a real party or is this your corporate bullshit party? Okay? So if it's a real party, then our candidate's going to win.
I think that is the problem, is not. At least it's been like, even with whether or not you like RFK, he had some good ideas, you know. I think they changed the rules on him so much where he was like, I have no shot here, guys. I got to go independent. And then he had to align with Trump, and RFK's a wild guy, But I think that's the issue: is the DNC as a entity. I don't know if it's possible. That's why it's just like, unless the Pelosi's get out, and Chuck Schumer gets primaried by AOC. Hopefully, she primaries him in New York City, or in New York, in the state of New York. I just that's the uphill battle that I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel because the DNC is so fucked. But I mean,
but you see why it makes sense to put them to the test first.
You have to. But I feel like they were put to the test with Bernie, but I don't know.
But Ken Martin, who's the current head of the DNC, is more of a Bernie guy. So it's not impossible. So don't give up on him yet. Yeah. Like, let's try populist left. Let's try it, right? Let's try it within the Democratic Party. Let's go and win these primaries and these general elections in 2026. Let's take Congress back so Trump can't do crazy shit, right? And then let's run in 28. And let's pick an awesome candidate and let's give him what we got. And if the Democratic Party goes, no, we're now officially the corporate party and we don't want anybody, no matter how popular they are, okay, then they're going to force us to form a third party. But I don't want to. And so, by the way, mainstream media will later find this interview like 2 years from now. And they'll be like, you see, Uygur was planning a third party all along. He's a heretic. He was against the Democratic Party.
We only got a few minutes left, so I want to get two things out the way real quick. Trump, you were very optimistic that, hey, let's give this guy a chance. Obviously, he's shown that this second go-round's a little bit more authoritarian, a lot bit more authoritarian than last time. It seemed to this as if he had a decent week in terms of anti-war stuff and breaking with Bibi a bit. But then it kind of felt like it was performative because he was parading around the Middle East. Can you give me one thing that you have liked about the Trump presidency? I know it's hard to say that, but is there anything that you
No, it's easy. So, but let me correct one that you said. So, no, I was dead set against Trump. And
no, I know, but you were at least very like.
I'll tell you what I said.
You know what I liked about you is you were like, I'm not gonna just not talk to people because of who they supported.
Yeah,
which
100%.
is where I think our country got fucked up. I stopped talking to my cousin for 2 years. You know what I mean?
Don't do that. So look, two things about that. Number one, after he got elected, I was like, look, guys, it's okay to be angry at Trump and his lackeys,
right?
But don't get angry at his voters,
right?
Like, and his voters are not one dude; they're a giant range,
for sure.
From like crazy QAnon dude to a guy who was like, I don't know, prices are too high. Right? What do you?
And a lot of people, that was it.
Yeah, that was it. Right? So, and for the guy who was worried about inflation, if you call him a racist and a Nazi, he's never going to vote for you again.
Ever again.
Right? So shut up. Yes. Shut up. You win back those voters. You don't insult them, right?
For sure.
So I don't mind you hating Trump. Just don't hate his voters. Right?
That's fair.
So that's point one. Point two is, look, we've got to find our wins wherever we can find them because this is a long 4 years.
Super long, man. I mean, some of the stuff with the free speech shit and the due process and, some of these, it's just, I don't want to even watch TV anymore, man.
And something that, again, the rad libs don't understand is that, no, we're in the populist woods now. And that's what I'm celebrating, right? Because in the old days, you got talking points from Fox News or MSNBC, and everybody was robots. They would just repeat those talking points, and you couldn't break through to them, right? Now that you've got shows, the right, left, and in the middle, that all have different opinions, it's forcing people to use their minds. Now we're in the ball game. So then you can go to a populist right or to independents and go, hey, you hated inflation, right? But tariffs are going to create inflation. You hate war, right? But why is Trump paying for Israel's wars, right? Mm-hmm. And you know what they're doing? They're going, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And as they're saying you're right, I got the radlibs going, don't talk to them. We should just be in a cave by ourselves. And we should call them Nazis. God damn it. Stop doing damage. You could bring these people in. So on Trump, what's he doing right? So he's terrible on constitutional issues. He's terrible. The tariffs were outrageously high, etc. But Netanyahu ordered him to attack Iran, and he said no. So if you can't give him credit for that, there's something wrong with you. If you all of a sudden you think you're on the left, and you're like, well, if Trump doesn't want war with Iran, then maybe we should go to war with Iran.
Then you're just like the cult members that you're a cult member. You're Blue MAGA.
Yeah. And so now, look, a lot of people don't say that. They don't say then I do want war with Iran. But what they'll say is, no, I don't trust Trump. And
Fair.
I know, but
Fair point.
nobody asked you to trust him.
Right.
We asked you to give him credit for the thing he did today, right? So that you encourage him and his MAGA base and the independents to keep going in that direction.
I think his ego is so fragile that he hears the noise. And I actually think his son probably be feeding him shit. Like, I feel like his son is super like, Dad, Bibi's dog walking you. And I think his ego, I think Don Jr. probably says that kind of shit to his dad because he's so plugged into the Twitter matrix and sees what the base is saying. And I think Trump's ego is so fucked that it's not about the genocide, our troops. It's about, I'm not going to let this fucking guy fucking come to the White House and hoe me. Like,
so some like the rad libs will be like, oh no, you just think Trump's a good guy and you're naive. I'm like, I don't think Trump's a good guy at all.
Horrible guy.
Right.
Yeah.
No, what I think is he cares about ratings. He cares about the stock market. He cares about his popularity, right? And of course, most of all, he cares about money, right? So now I want that genocide to stop, and I want us to stop funding Israel, and I want us, and not just for the Palestinians, but we're not helping Israel when we fund them. We're enabling their worst instincts, and then they're getting hated by the whole world. So it's not helping Israel either. So I want them to stop funding Israel, and I don't want them to go to war with Iran. What am I going to do? Okay, so number one, if I see Qatar and all those guys bribing Trump to do the Arab plan instead of the Israeli plan, okay, I'm against corruption, and I'll call it out because I'm honest. But okay, so all right, take the ship. Let's see what take the jet.
Take the fucking jet, man. Okay. If it means kids stop dying, take the fucking jet.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I'm still honest, and I call it out. Obviously,
for sure.
Corruption, right? All right, but yeah, okay, can encourage in that direction. Most importantly, now if he sees he's losing his base, he's obsessed with his base. Like Democrats hate their base, but Trump's obsessed with his base.
He is, which is a strength of his.
Yeah. In politically, not policy, but for politics.
For politics, it works.
Yeah. So now, if you start eroding his base, and Tucker and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Candace and Dave Smith
Rogan,
and Joe Rogan,
yeah.
and Andrew Schultz. And Andrew Schultz is not part of his base; he's a Democrat.
But he voted for Trump.
Yeah. But still, all these guys are now like, wait, you're kidnapping people off the streets of America because they criticized Israel?
This is America.
This is America.
I thought we were voting for you because the other side was anti-free speech.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And that's
why I can't respect RFK anymore, because I was an RFK guy for a little bit. But fuck, this guy his whole thing is free speech, and he's running around with Rabbi Shmuley. You got to go, but I want to get a couple of quick points off. One would be, I think in our lifetime, I'm not sure there's anything bigger or more grotesque, or I'm not sure there's going to be a bigger travesty than what's happening in Gaza. I'm not sure if you and I will live to see that. Obviously, there's stuff going on in the Congo as well, but
we don't fund that.
I don't know where the world goes from here. I saw the UK was talking about sanctions on Israel. Is it going to get to, like, how does this thing end, man? Like,
so look, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely, right? So Israel didn't start out this way. So Israel always had problems. They've been occupying the Palestinians for 58 years. It didn't happen yesterday, right?
True.
Now, having said that, it's gotten much, much worse over time.
And cruel, yeah.
Yeah, and so now we're at Netanyahu, Smotrich, and Ben Gvir. Ben Gvir is a literal convicted terrorist, aided and abetted terrorism. And now Smotrich, just 2 days ago, said, we should keep. I want to starve the Palestinians to death, but the world won't let us. If we do, they won't let us keep Gaza. So let's keep them on the brink of starvation and then push them out of the country. That's literally genocide and ethnic cleansing. And he's saying it out loud, right? Let's do that, and then we'll get to keep Gaza. That way, he's basically saying we get to steal Gaza as long as we don't starve them to death. Let's just bring them to the brink of starvation. So they have become what they most feared and despised. I mean, I don't know anything that sounds more fascist than those statements, right? And now Netanyahu is just flat out saying it. Yeah, this is the conquest of Gaza. It's not about self-defense. They're on the offense. They were doing this all along to take land, and we said that, and they're like, anti-Semite. Okay, now they're saying, yeah, we did it for land. Yeah. So are you now going to apologize to all of us? You freaking liars, right? So how does this end? If we keep funding Israel, they're just going to get worse and worse and worse. Then they'll take West Bank, then they'll take southern Lebanon, they'll take western Syria.
Yeah, they have it. The Greater Israel patch is on the IDF fucking uniform.
Yeah, and they have a map in the Israeli government of Greater Israel and all of the Arab land they plan to steal. That's just a fact.
This is not a lie. This is literally, and they talk about it's crazy. Yeah, so it's the funding.
Yeah. So you have to cut their funding. And it's not to hurt them. It's to bring them back to sanity.
It's to make them good neighbors.
Yes. Like, so if you're enabling their worst instincts, you're not helping them, you're hurting them, right? So U.S. has to cut all funding to Israel. None, 0, 0, 0. But then the rest of the world has to do a massive economic boycott.
Yeah. No, they have to. I feel like the same way that everyone sanctioned Russia. Why? Like, what? Yeah, how do you feel about the Russia-Ukrainian conflict? They attacked a country, but they did not fucking wipe out the entire Ukrainian population. You know?
Yeah. So, and what Russia did is also terrible,
for sure.
But the great example is South Africa, because South Africa and Israel are not run by dictators. So when you sanction Iraq, when it's run by Saddam Hussein, it's never going to work because he's a single dictator. He's not going to run out of food.
When you sanction democracies, the people will vote those people out because they're like, it's fucking up our pockets, our country.
Yeah,
right?
And even before it gets to that level, the businessmen of that country, that's what turned in South Africa.
They're oligarchs.
And the oligarchs were like, what the fuck? Now we lost our money, right?
Yeah.
So if you cost the oligarchs of Israel their money, just because they're human, not because they're Jewish, just same thing happened in South Africa, same thing happens everywhere,
sure.
right? They're going to be like, no, wait. Same thing happened in Egypt, by the way. It was a general strike that did Mubarak in, right? So when you touch the economic power, that's when you're in the ballgame. That's why when anybody talks about boycott, divestment, and sanctioning Israel, that's when the pro-Israeli lobby goes nuts.
Yeah.
They're like, that's the most anti-Semitic thing. That's worse than terrorism and stuff.
That's crazy.
That means that's the one. That's the one that's going to work, right? Giant boycott. I mean, what are we going to do? We said never again. We said never again, right? And they're starving 2 million people to death. If you don't do an economic boycott over that, then you're not ever going to do it.
And the fact that all the world courts and all these, like, everyone just, all this shit just gets ignored. The UN, it's everything. It's crazy. But look, I appreciate you taking time out. You got to get out of here. You are, I feel like you walked so other shows can run. I think about, I love Breaking Points and all, but all these shows, they're all like, if it wasn't for Young Turks, you kind of showed everybody that there was an independent way to do news and at a high level. So I appreciate what you and Anna and everybody over there does, and you're killing it. How can people donate to the PAC?
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Everything you said. So rebellionpack.com. Okay. So that's how you donate to the PAC. If you want to watch Young Turks, we're on every night, 6 o'clock Eastern. Just go on YouTube. We're everywhere, but YouTube's the easiest, right?
For sure.
Young Turks on YouTube, 6 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday. And then come to tyt.com and check it out. We got an awesome community. We do a thing called Operation Hope, and that's where Rebellion Pack came out of. Our own audience was like, why don't we fight back?
Right.
Why don't we get our own candidates? Why don't we do this? And I do a town hall with the audience, and we brainstorm, we come with ideas, and then we do them, right? So come be part of the solution. And, and you're right. I mean, we've been here from day one. We're the first YouTube partner ever.
It's just crazy. What's that, 08?
Yeah, that was 06.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, and so
I was a year out of high school. I'm 37, so.
Back then, Kev, when I said I got a YouTube channel, people would laugh. They're like, oh, yeah, you got cats playing on pianos, right? Now when I tell my kids' friends I'm the original YouTuber, they're like, whoa.
They think it's cool, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, the kids think it's cool. Mainstream media is still like, whatever.
Yeah, fuck. Yeah. But listen, man, I appreciate you. I hope we can do this again because I feel like there's so much other stuff we could talk about because I'm just more, I want to dive into your journey and how you, I feel like there's so much going on in the political landscape. But I want to kind of one day talk to you about just the start of Young Turks and how everything started. And California, fuck. You live in California, you might start thinking about being a Republican long enough. It's fucked out here, man.
Yeah, I mean,
you could be the governor, dude. What the fuck?
No, I don't want it.
But you could be.
I don't. You know who could be? Okay, I'm not going to get into it. There's many other good candidates, but Anna Kasparian. My
I
co-host.
love her. And she's Armenian.
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
lit. She got all of Glendale and the Valley on lock. That is wild. I think that people don't understand the dynamics of the Young Turks is an Armenian and a Turkish guy coming together. An Armenian woman and a Turkish a man as the main. And for people who don't know, Armenians and Turks, they do not get along.
They do here. You know
Historically.
why? Because this is America.
This is America. Yeah. Young Turks. Let's vote. Hey, Anna 2028. I'm voting for her, man. Come on, let's go.
It started right here. You're the first person to ever say it.
There it is. I appreciate you, bro.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Yeah, sure. Boom. Fire. Quick break. I want to give a shout out to our new sponsors at Slapwoods. The only thing we're smoking around here, Slapwoods, because they slap. Go to slapwoods.com.